Knowledge and tradition. I wonder how many of you noticed the rainbow last evening. It was just over the water and one came upon it suddenly. It was a beautiful thing to behold, and it gave one a great sense of joy, an awareness of the vastness and beauty of the earth. To communicate such joy, one must have a knowledge of words, the rhythm and beauty of right language. But what is far more important is the feeling itself, the ecstasy that comes with the deep appreciation of something lovely, and this feeling cannot be awakened through the mere cultivation of knowledge or memory. You see, we must have knowledge to communicate, to tell each other about something. And to cultivate knowledge, there must be memory. Without knowledge, you cannot fly an airplane. You cannot build a bridge or a lovely house. You cannot construct great roads, look after trees, care for animals, and do the many other things that a civilized man must do. And do the many other things that a civilized man must do. To generate electricity, to work in the various sciences, to help man through medicine, and so on. For all this, you must have knowledge, information, memory, and in these matters, it is necessary to receive the best possible instruction. That is why it is very important that you should have technically first class teachers to give you right information and help you to cultivate a thorough knowledge of various subjects. But you see, while knowledge is a necessary at one level, at another level it becomes a hindrance. There is a great deal of knowledge available about physical existence, and it is being added to all the time. It is essential to have such knowledge and to utilize it for the benefit of man. But is there not another kind of knowledge which, at the psychological level, becomes a hindrance to the discovery of what is true? After all, knowledge is a form of tradition, is it not? And tradition is the cultivation of memory. Tradition in mechanical affairs is essential. But when tradition is used as a means of guiding men inwardly, it becomes a hindrance to the discovery of great things. We rely on knowledge, on memory in mechanical things and in our everyday living. Without knowledge, we would not be able to drive a car, we would be incapable of doing many things, but knowledge is a hindrance when it becomes a tradition, a belief which guides the mind, the physique, the inward being, and it also divides people. Have you noticed how people all over the world are divided into groups calling themselves Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, Christians, and so on? What divides them? Not the investigations of science, not the knowledge of agriculture, of how to build bridges or fly jet planes. What divides people is tradition, beliefs which condition the mind in a certain way. So, knowledge is the hindrance when it has become a tradition which shapes or conditions the mind to a particular pattern, because then it not only divides people and creates enmity between them, but it also prevents the deep discovery of what is truth, what is life, what is God. To discover what is God, the mind must be free of all tradition, of all accumulation, of all knowledge which it uses as a psychological safeguard. The function of education is to give the student abundant knowledge in the various fields of human endeavor and at the same time to free his mind from all tradition so that he is able to investigate, to find out, to discover. Otherwise, the mind becomes mechanical, burdened with the machinery of knowledge. Unless it is constantly freeing itself from the accumulation of tradition, the mind is incapable of discovering the supreme, that which is eternal. But it must obviously acquire expanding knowledge and information so that it is capable of dealing with the things that man needs and must produce. So, knowledge, which is the cultivation of memory, is useful and necessary at a certain level, but at another level, it becomes a detriment. To recognize the distinction, to see where knowledge is destructive and has to be put aside, and where it is essential and to be allowed to function with as much amplitude as possible, is the beginning of intelligence. Now, what is happening in education at the present time? You are being given various kinds of knowledge, are you not? When you go to college, you may become an engineer, a doctor, or a lawyer. You may take a PhD in mathematics or in some other branch of knowledge. You may study domestic science and learn how to keep house, how to cook, and so on. But nobody helps you to be free of all traditions, so that from the very beginning your mind is fresh, eager, and therefore capable of discovering something totally new all the time. The philosophies, theories, and beliefs which you acquire from books and which become your tradition are really a hindrance to the mind, because the mind uses these things as a means of its own psychological security and is therefore conditioned by them. So it is necessary both to free the mind from all tradition and at the same time to cultivate knowledge, technique, and this is the function of education. The difficulty is to free the mind from the known so that it can discover what is new all the time. A great mathematician once told of how he had been working on a problem for a number of days and could not find the solution. One morning, as he was taking a walk as usual, he suddenly saw the answer. What had happened? His mind, being quiet, was free to look at the problem, and the problem itself revealed the answer. One must have information about a problem, but the mind must be free of that information to find the answer. Most of us learn facts, gather information or knowledge, but the mind never learns how to be quiet, how to be free from all the turmoils of life, from the soil in which problems take root. We join societies, adhere to some philosophy, give ourselves over to a belief, but all this is utterly useless because it does not solve our human problems. On the contrary, it brings greater misery, greater sorrow. What is needed is not philosophy or belief, but for the mind to be free to investigate, to discover, and to be creative. You cram up to pass examinations, you gather a lot of information and write it all out to get a degree, hoping to find a job and get married. And is that all? You have acquired knowledge, technique, but your mind is not free. So you become a slave to the existing system, which really means that you are not a creative human being. You may have children, you may paint a few pictures or write an occasional poem, but surely that is not creativeness. There must first be freedom of the mind for creativeness to take place, and then technique can be used to express that creativeness. But to have the technique is meaningless without a creative mind, without the extraordinary creativeness which comes with the discovery of what is true. Unfortunately, most of us do not know this creativeness because we have burdened our minds with knowledge, tradition, memory, with that Shankara, Buddha, Marx, or some other person has said. Whereas, if your mind is free to discover what is true, then you will find that there comes an abundant and incorruptible richness in which there is great joy. Then all one's relationship with people, with ideas, and with things have quite a different meaning.